see everyone. I'm going to go a little bit in the technical side of on how to really develop an application. What are the very simple base blocks you need to understand before you can sort of go through our own starter guide and start learning it yourself, and then afterwards we'll go more in depth. But I think very simply put, there are two main parts of any application that is a VIKTOR application. So on the left-hand side, you'll see clearly defined inputs, and on the right-hand side, you'll see clearly defined outputs. So the outputs can be a lot of things. I'll show a few examples later on, and also for the inputs, that's yeah, as simple as that. For instance, for the inputs, we see that a lot of inputs are quite generic. So we've developed a toolbox for all these kinds of inputs. Yeah, whatever is ever needed within the industry. So you'll see numbers, texts, but also buttons, map views, tables. All these kind of things are sort of out of the box in VIKTOR. So what this is a really great feature about this platform is that you can, with very ease, with just one simple row of Python code, you can already instantiate sort of this input. So yeah, showing it a little bit in code, you'll see here in this parameterization function, the parameterization class is sort of whatever pops in the left corner, the left-hand side of your VIKTOR app. We can just define number fields in this sense, that will create a number field. We can add a lot of default parameters, sort of minimum, maximum values, all these kind of things. But only this row will print out three input fields, making it super easy and super handy to work with and set it up really quickly.
Sorry to interrupt you, Rick.
Yeah.
I just get the question. We are still seeing the how to develop an app slide. So is that ready?
I was seeing the slides that you were speaking to, Rick.
Okay.
Now I see how to develop an app slide.
Yeah, so that's still
now I see what really is an app.
What really is an app, right?
Nice. And maybe I saw, Rick, that your slides were not yet on presentation mode.
No, I saw them in presentation mode.
Okay.
I had to click on top of my Zoom thing to click to that.
Okay, cool. Okay, maybe Rick, you can then share again. I now stopped sharing.
Should be visible, right?
Yes.
Thank you. So yeah, on the left-hand side, we have the parameterization class, so to say, which is just a container of all the inputs you ever need in your projects. In the toolbox, there's also, for instance, pages or steps or ways to click through it. It's a really broad library or toolbox of tools you can use to prepare your inputs. And also, yeah, we'll share where to find this nice list on our documentation page. And then on the other hand, you have your views. So your views are always stateless. So based on whatever you input on the left-hand side, you'll get out some view. So that can be an image, maybe some 3D geometry, maybe a map or some PDF reports. We can also create custom HTML, so you can really build whatever you want. And there's also a possibility sort of to combine, let's say, some data on the right-hand side with the geometry view, so that you can interact with it. I think also an IFC view is super nice, where you can inspect the properties of your uploaded model or generated model even. So that's all on the right-hand side, and in the background, in every view, we do all the difficult calculations. So let's say we want to create this bridge. The bridge creation happens within the view, and then it gets created. Or in a much simpler example, when we create, for instance, a plot, we do sort of all the logic happens here, and then we return it as an image to be able to plot in one of our views. So this is sort of how every application looks like. You have your inputs over here, and then you have your outputs over here. And within that, you can just go wild. You can do the most insane things, whatever. That's all possible. But maybe it's good to show you a little bit on how that looks like for real, instead of me just explaining, because there are some nice features to our way of developing. So as an example, I have our internal page here, and I always have my own development page ready for myself. So this is something only you can see, and this is connected to my my VIKTOR code. So I'm writing some code here locally, and this is actually live updated with whatever I change. So when I'm developing, I can always sort of immediately see my my changes, see whatever I'm doing, whatever I'm doing wrong, or yeah, if whatever is printed out how I expected. So if I were to add a new parameter in here, let's call it length, 1, for instance, you'll see it's automatically reloading the application. It's also had a small error. It will immediately show that. And in the application, when I refresh or reparameterize, you'll see that it got edit. And let's say we have also width and height. The height. These also get added automatically to my application. So you'll notice that when I now I've only added some values, there is no view to be seen on the right hand side, so the input automatically stretches. But let's say we want to add a simple geometry view to maybe create a simple beam or so, simple beam based on my parameters. I actually have access to my parameters in this function. So these are the values that I've filled in over here. And then when I do beam using our default built-in geometry, I can actually put the values as sort of the length, height, and width. So this square beam actually expects a length in X, Y, and Z. So I can actually give that to this class to make sure that I create it and actually visualize it. Return geometry result. When I update this screen, you'll see I have now two screens. So on the right hand side, you'll see the 3D geometry I've just created, this nice cube. And then when I increase it, the view will automatically update and recalculate itself based on the parameters that are on the left hand side. So that's a really important feature of the platform, is that the parameters are filled in. You can save them somewhere in the database. They're in the back saved. And actually, the views, they are not saved. So they are always calculated when we use them. And we can actually save sort of, let's say, my current beam, nice beam, to save them. And also, this is a super nice way to track changes, especially if you have a comparison with Excel, where this is always very dangerous. I can always see, okay, less than a minute ago, Rick van Dijk changed some stuff here. So that's in very short how we develop in this way. And maybe some more pictures I have in this sense. I'm not quite sure if there are questions already. Oh, no, still from the old stuff. So let me go back to my nice PowerPoint. And it's nice. So this was very simple, right? So you just created a beam, but it's very important to know that in the back it's Python. You have full access on everything. So we have you can save stuff in a database. You can also connect to other databases. What's also very nice is that you can connect to other VIKTOR applications. So that means that you can read out parameters from another application that's on your platform, or you can even compute functions of other calculations on other apps, basically transforming it sort of in a microservice, which is super nice. And in the same time, we also provide sort of built-in dashboarding and user management. So it's also something not to worry about outside of the hosting that Stijn already mentioned. And lastly, from this, let's say from this view, you could also send over requests to other software packages. I've heard Grasshopper quite a lot. So what you could do is in your application, save a Grasshopper file, send it over to Rhino Compute and say, okay, I want this to be computed with these and that parameters. Please return to me the result. And then you have sort of computed the Rhino definition over your VIKTOR application. And then we support 3DM geometry. So you can just show the 3DM geometry instead of the boring beam I was just showing, and create these super nice images based on your own flows. So I think that's in very short what an application is. So it's always the left-hand side, the parameters that you can fill in using our toolbox. And on the right-hand side, you have your views that can actually interact with all these things because they're based on Python, which is a very accessible language, but also a very powerful one. Then what we also provide is sort of multiple ways of creating an app. So today we'll focus only on sort of a very simple application, but there are also more difficult ones where you can more think of projects. So for each project, you have a new application and have user management and databases per application instead of per app. So it's per project, but you can also make it even more complex where there is sort of a tree structure. Let's say you have here you see a building generation in this app, but then this building is also in a sort of like a city scale somewhere placed. So there is another layer above it or below it, and maybe there is a calculation of one column that's really defined in another child. So this is a very nice way to also make super complex apps, but today we'll not touch on that. We'll focus on sort of the editor type. So I think it's super nice to make sure that we have all set it up. So what do you actually need? We hope that you've installed Python, and that's just a very nice tool overall. But overall, also that you've registered yourself on cloud.viktor.ai. I think I've sent over an email to everyone. Hopefully, everyone got that email to register yourself on our cloud.viktor.ai. So this is a free platform where you can do only like the first application type, but it's nice to get you started and feel like how everything feels. And what we're otherwise doing is everyone has their own sort of your company.viktor.ai. So if you're registered to that, I think you can get started. Then you need an IDE, which is a way to write some code. I also not personally always like PyCharm, but VS Code or any other IDE is always very good. And then you need to, I think it also follows from the onboarding flow. Start your terminal and head into your development space to start working and create sort of our starter guide. So I think that's what we're going to do now. Take it up a little bit of DIY. If there are any questions, feel free to put them in here, speak up, unmute yourself and ask them. We're ready to help, especially if it's a very specific question that everyone might be interested in, let's say on Excel sheets or so. I'm always happy to explain a little bit more on that. But very technical questions can always be asked through our Slack. And it would be ideal if everyone sort of after 30 minutes has finished the starter guide at the very least. This is can be found on our docs.viktor.io page. And on this, I think it would be very nice if you could end this half an hour with at least this table view on the end. So this would be the very first result. If you have, however, already done that, then we're very happy with you. That's very nice. Under development apps, there's actually a tutorial page with a lot of 1-star, 2-star tutorials. So let's say you're very interested in doing something with maps or automated reporting. Feel free to pick up one of your own. Feel free to let us know also. And actually develop one, follow a tutorial along, and we'll be here to help you out. Yeah, so that would be, I think, what we'll do for the next 30 minutes. And then, yeah, again, if there are questions, feel free to ask them.
Yeah, so I think indeed that the goal is the main, that ideally we would use the Slack channel as much as possible then we have one central place for the communication. So hopefully everybody can enter that. And then I also share the link there, basically where you can start. If you haven't made an account yet, I shared the link in the Slack channel. I'll also share it here if you haven't been able to enter the Slack channel yet. So this is basically where you can create your account, and then in that process, indeed, you will be guided to the starter guide as well, as Rick mentioned. And maybe I think that would be nice that we have this in the Slack channel. Also, Rick posted already a question where you can mark whether you finish the installation. So it would be nice that if you have finished the installation, just let us know. Then we know where everybody is approximately. All right. So hopefully that's all clear. Let us know if there are any questions, and then I think for now we will just let you start with the installation and the starter guide. Jesse, I see your question in Slack. Maybe it's easiest if you can share your screen, and we can have a look as well.
Yeah, just a second here. Yeah, it looks like I just went into code space here. So, and oops. Looks like I've got both these guys here. I'm not sure where I'm supposed to be working from, because neither of those I created.
I think if you click the bottom one, and then from here it should connect. I think it's now starting up, and then in the terminal at some point you should see your CLI.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so this is something still on. Yeah, now it's cool.
Okay,
Nice.
cool, awesome.
Yeah, so this is working. So now I think
Now I can just use type that in there, and I can get to.
Yeah, indeed. Quick start command.
Okay, cool, thanks.
You should be good to go. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, so again, please let us know when you're stuck, and we'll do our best to help you out.
If you're eager to continue, that's also fine.
Definitely.
I have a question. So here, share my screen. So I was able to come up to this step here where I had to type this line in. But when I tried to, it said to save it, and somehow it loses connection from here to here. I'm not sure what's going on.
Yeah, so if you've so right now I think it got closed. So in the bottom where your terminal is, you should run the VIKTOR CLI start again. So on the right hand side, you'll see VIKTOR CLI start. You have to run that command to restart your app. I'm not sure why it actually closed the connection. If you enter here VIKTOR -CLI space start, like it's showing on the right hand screen, that should run it again. Yeah, that one. Yeah, the black.
This right here.
So if you just, yeah, did paste it there.
Could you tell us a little bit about how, so we create this app, so you've got a folder, which we're seeing on the screen on the left. It's got the VENV. So that's a virtual environment specific to this app. And so you don't need like a virtual environment, some like Anaconda virtual environment or anything set up. You just need to be able to point to a Python install locally or in the cloud. And then when you do the clean start of the app, it will set up that virtual environment for you.
So let me also help out Brinkon in a sec. But the VIKTOR CLI install automatically does all that for you. So there's no need to do all these complex things. So that's sort of built in our VIKTOR CLI. Because especially virtual environments can be a bit difficult to comprehend for new developers. So that's stuff we like to take over. And in Brinken's case, let me check. Because I thought I saw something with Python 3.7 being said. That was odd. Because you're working in code spaces. Been able to find 3.7.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe in the process of.
Yeah, it's somehow set to 3.7.
Yeah, I was installing a bunch of stuff yesterday, so I don't know. I don't know what it meant. Maybe I did something wrong.
Can you let me direct message you on Slack to add a file.
Yeah. I also don't want to hold back the class or anything. This is
Oh
like
no, that's
problem.
we can do that. We can do that simultaneously. Are you on Slack?
Yeah, I don't even have an account, to be honest. So
I don't think
I'll work on that.
one.
Yeah, I'll make one.
Can I do it like
Yeah, I'm having trouble here with the with using code spaces in this quick start thing. Am I supposed to be running that in the code space IDE or what?
Yeah, so indeed, if you, so basically, so maybe you can share your screen because that can help a bit to explain
Yeah,
it.
sure.
So basically, if you are using code spaces, it's actually, yeah, so it's sort of an online, an in-browser IDE, but
Yeah.
also in there you can run your the CLI basically. So the CLI, that's the part the VIKTOR CLI connects to the to the web app.
Yeah, so just
And
and this is what I was doing here, just running that
yeah,
in
yeah,
there.
you should actually copy paste this. So if you take
Yep.
that thing,
Yep, that's what I did.
and then you should actually paste it in the terminal down there. So
Oh, okay, down in here.
terminal,
Okay.
yeah, and then down there, if you paste it here, then it should actually. Not sure.
Okay.
Yeah. And now you should. For some reason, yeah, maybe you.
I'm just not pasting it, but
I think you're missing the O. Yeah.
cool.
Nice. Yeah. So
Okay,
that's
thanks.
cool. Yeah. So basically, this is where you indeed in the terminal you can give the CLI commands.
Okay,
And
cool.
then now you can see that here in the app.py file, that's where you will can add parameters, etc. So it's now sort of doing the installation, and at some point it will say app is ready, and then you can when you then make changes, then you will see them. And did you already find the development workspace?
Yeah, I've got a development
Yeah.
workspace.
That's the tab on the
Where is it?
way on the left-hand
Yeah,
side.
there we go. Yeah.
Yeah. So now it's when
Okay.
this installation is finished, then you should. Yeah. I think if you now refresh this page, it should.
Cool.
Yeah. There
Awesome.
you are. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Cool. You're welcome.
To go back for a moment to the virtual environment and the Python install. So the VIKTOR CLI is creating a virtual environment for every app you create. But if there's a question of like Python 10 or Python, I mean 3.10, 3.13, you need Python installed on your system, right? Is it just kind of like looking to a default Python? Are you guys installing a Python under the hood? I seem to have it working where in the VIKTOR configure, I pointed to an Anaconda environment that I set up, and that seems to be working. Yeah, could you just, for anyone that manages multiple Python environments, is there anything, we would want to think about if we do have to use multiple versions of Python on a machine?
Are you answering this one, Eric?
No, I was doing some typing. Sorry. Feel free.
Okay.
Feel free.
Would you like repeated?
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I thought that that Rick was listening as well.
Oh, I
but,
was also listening. I can answer.
Okay.
So that eventually, that's if you have multiple projects, we do assume you have a VENV, so a virtual environment for each and every one of them. And every VENV has its own version of Python. So let's say I run a project in Python 3.10, and I can run another project in Python 3.11 because they, so every package in there is installed based on the version. So this makes it, the use of virtual environments makes it very friendly to work in multiple projects. And when you actually publish your application to your space from the company, we containerize everything. So also on the platform, it's always working with only your packages that you've defined. So you can install all packages from PyPy or whatever, as long as they work on Linux. But that's sort of the reason why we do that containerization. To also make sure that there's never a dependency on other.
So if I want one app that runs 3.13 and another app that works 3.10, it's on me to have both of those Python versions on my local machine. And VIKTOR will find them and use them respectively.
Yeah.
But if I said use 3.13 and I didn't have Python 3.13 on my machine, I would maybe get some errors.
No, because then you would run VIKTOR CLI.install, and that will automatically. So let me show.
So it grabs everything for you. It's not just like getting packages, it's setting up the entire virtual environment.
Yeah.
Including the underlying version of Python. I got it.
So and this is also important for Beacon, I think.
Right, I'm looking at that file right now.
Is close everything here. Basically, what you can do is add a VIKTOR config.toml and define sort of what your app type is, but also the Python version. And you can define sort of your requirements.txt. So this is all my required packages that I install. So when I call VIKTOR.CLI install, it will automatically freeze my virtual environment and start updating my packages based on my VIKTOR config and my requirements.txt. So these are sort of the libraries of my project. And if I have another project with another Python version, we actually support 3.13 again now also. I could just change this this parameter and it will automatically do that for me through this command.
Right.
I'm not sure if Beacon was helped by that.
That's that's wonderful. Seems like it makes things really easy. I have a follow-up question on that TOML file because it was just on the screen for a second and it says app type. That's the, is that related to like the simple versus sequential versus tree diagram you showed us in the presentation earlier? Okay.
Yeah. So that's where we define that and why, whereas that's always defined sort of like that.
Well, in this time, I was able to look at one of those tutorials, create a local app, run it. I'm seeing it in the development dashboard. We saw a couple people manage that. What could you remind us what the goals for this little work session were? And is maybe we could ask the group if we're all there. I feel like I'm ready to maybe see a little more, or I could just keep working on my own.
No, I think we should definitely continue. And maybe try to do a round of people that are also in your position. And maybe if you're not, I think Stein will continue a little bit, and I can help out
Yeah.
people personally.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's a good one.
Maybe a short break in between.
Yeah, maybe we can do maybe it's a good moment now that I first introduce, let's say, the next step, and that we then after that do a break. Then we're a bit halfway there time-wise. So that's indeed, I can imagine if you're not done with the installation yet, or the starter guide, yeah, just make sure to post in Slack. If you're not in Slack yet, just post it here in the chat, and then Rick can help you out. All right, so let me share my screen again. So you should be able to see my screen. So basically, this is what you just did is you have been working in your development workspace so far. This is actually also quite nice to see. Here we see, let's say, a more filled environment. So at some point, what you will see is that there are multiple apps available in this environment. But if you now want to create your own app, there are multiple ways to do this. So if you go to the App Store, this is the place where you can start with creating your own app. And basically, we offer three main ways. One thing is that you can just create a blank app. So when you will do this, it's actually quite similar to what you saw just with the starter guide. It just creates an empty app, and then you can just start with developing it yourself. So let's say if you would have the situation where you think, okay, I just have some Python script which I want to hang into build an app around it, then creating a blank app is a great way to start. Another one is that you can start from an Excel sheet. So I will just show you, just go through this basically. So how this works is that you need to prepare your Excel sheet first in some way. So we have a template available here. And if I just open this Excel sheet, what you will see is there are two things required. So that you create a tab called VIKTOR Input Sheet and a tab called VIKTOR Output Sheet. And basically, how this works is that it will create a VIKTOR app around this, where it will use the parameters that you defined in the VIKTOR Input Sheet as the input. It will turn it into VIKTOR input parameters, and in the output sheet, it will use that as output. And then once you then do that, then you can upload your own sheet. I will just use the template. It will also, if there's no, if there is an error, then it will let you know. Oh, wait, I have to app, and then this way it will create the app, and then you can just use this command to start up this app. So let me just open PowerShell, run this command. And what's it now doing? And that's, I think, quite cool. It's turning this into a VIKTOR app. So it's actually creating the Python code which is needed and what we have available. So that's something that you can see also in our docs. So I'll just show this in the meantime. We also have a tutorial on this. spreadsheet calculator. So what's possible to do in VIKTOR is that you can just basically communicate with an Excel sheet. This is a bit how it works. So you can basically connect certain input parameters to a spreadsheet, to an input field in your Excel sheet. And then you can basically just run the sheet on the background. And actually we are just running this in the cloud. And then you can get your results back. So in this way you can just use an Excel sheet as sort of a calculator in a VIKTOR app. So let me just see in the meantime. It's still installing. And then how this works is that you can just, basically these are the steps. You fill the Excel sheet with the parameters, then it will evaluate, and then you can get the results back, and then you can visualize them again in your VIKTOR app. It takes a little bit of time to install. Let me just keep this for now, and I will just show also the other opportunities. So another option is, I think, and that's also a really nice starting point, is to use a template. So if you click this, you will see some template apps available. So for example, I heard, I think Nico, it was you also, about graphs and data. So what you can see over here, we have some templates available. Let's say if you would like to do something with graphs and data, you can first see the app over here. So this is, in this case, the app. And it's just a very simple example where you can see that you can have some input parameters. And then you can have these nice interactive graphs. And I think that's what's quite cool, is that in this case we use Plotly. Plotly is used on the background. So Plotly is a really powerful Python library for interactive visualizations. We also refer to that in our documentation. And in this way, if you do something with graphs, Plotly is just a very nice way to do that. You can see that in our results. And this is basically how it works. So you just import Plotly which is a Python package, and then in this way you can use a Plotly view and then show these results. So that's the other option. And if you select this template, then you can create the app, fill in a name, and then run the same command, and then it actually loads this template app. It loads it just into your development workspace. And let me see if in the meantime this is done. Okay, so this is now for the Excel app. Now I can just choose which IDE I have. And then what you will see over here, if I go to the app.py, so this is basically then automatically created. So you see here, if I would have added other fields, then it automatically creates these input fields. And if I now go to my development workspace, so your development workspace is always when you go to your workspaces page, the one on the top left. And then basically this is what you will see. And so if I now change a parameter, it's actually on the background, it's just running the Excel sheet and it will show the results. So this is the code. So here you can see just the lines of code for the input parameters. So if I would like to, let's say that you add a parameter, it's just again adding a parameter, a line of code here, extra. And here you can choose all kinds of input fields that we have available. Like this. So if you would like to know, okay, what are all the input fields that we have available, You can find that in our documentation. So if you go to documentation, you go to user input, then you can see all all the input fields that are available. So we, for example, also offer a way how you can use a table as an input with multiple columns. So those kind of things are also possible. You can even also, that's maybe also quite nice to show. You can also use files as an input. Maybe I can just copy this one. And maybe it's not the most logical case in combination with an Excel sheet, but what you will see, if I now go back to my developer workspace, refresh, and you can now see that this upload field is actually there. And then again, when you upload a file, then you can use it again in your views to do something with this. Now, what you see here as well is that it turned the graphs which were available in the Excel sheet, it turned those into these views, and also with Plotly, these interactive graphs. So how does this look like in code? So what you will see over here is that basically there's a view created. So each function, so this is then a function, relates to one of the views. So that's what you will see over here. So you see here these views. So that relates to this function that is defined over here. So you can see all these views. So basically, what's it? In this case, it's using a Plotly view. It fills in the spreadsheet. It parses it, and then it gets the figure, which is named like that, from it, and it turns into the Plotly result. Yeah, so this is quite a quick way to start with if you would like to convert an Excel sheet and a template app. That's just basically the same flow, but then selecting a template, and then if you just click through it, then you will be guided. All right, so hopefully that helps. I would recommend, maybe if there's something that you think, okay, I would like to explore with doing something with graphs or a 3D model or maps, to pick one of the templates to start from there. Another possibility, what you could do is to start, of course, with an Excel sheet, as I showed, or start with a blank app and then just start to put in input and output. And then the last thing that I would like to show is that we have also a way how you can visually start to develop your app. So what you can do over here is you can maybe I just went through it a bit too quickly. So if you go to VIKTOR Labs, because this is sort of a new beta thing that we developed, if you go to VIKTOR Labs and then go to the Visual Builder, then you will be able to add fields here. So let's say I want to add a number field. You can give it some names. And maybe you want to add, you want to do something with a map. Then we have ways that you can click on a map. So you can use, for example, a geopoint. And then you can add a view as well. So let's say that you want to show some geometry, and you want to show some maybe a map as well. You can all add this, and then it generates the app code. So if you click the Generate App Code button, then you will see how the VIKTOR code looks like to do this. So you see now that it added these parameters, and you can now just copy this app code and then paste it into your app.py file. And this is also quite a nice way to start building. You can easily see which fields are available and which views. All right, so that's what I wanted to show for now. Let me just... There we go.
I have heard a lot of people in their introduction mention Grasshopper, Stijn.
Sorry?
Something I've heard a lot of people mention Grasshopper in their introduction.
Yeah.
I can imagine that people have with Grasshopper they already despise Excel. So maybe could you show
Yeah.
or explain a little bit on that?
Yeah, it's a very good one. So let me just share
I
my
can
screen.
imagine that's out of the blue. Sorry for that.
No, that's perfectly fine. Yeah, so basically, we also offer an integration with Grasshopper. So this is an example of such an app. So in this case, what you will see is that you have input parameters.
Sharing.
Oh, sorry, I'm not sharing it.
Yeah, nice.
You push the share button. So what you will see over here is this is a bit of the same, let's say, setup as with Excel, but in this case, instead of Excel running in the background, it's Grasshopper running in the background. So what you see over here is that you can have your input parameters defined, and then on the right-hand side, you will see, in this case, the geometry, which is defined in your Grasshopper model. In this case, and what's quite nice is that there's you can also use all the plugins that you use for Grasshopper as well. And in this case, you will see that if I change parameter, in this case it's connected to Rhino Compute, but you can also just connect it to your local machine. So from the web app, you can run it locally, and that's the easiest way to start with. And then also some output parameters are being sent back, which are visualized here as well. So if you would like to do this, we have a tutorial on this one. So again, in the docs, if you go to tutorials, you will see over here the Rhino Grasshopper tutorial. And this will guide you through how you can do this. So basically how you set up your VIKTOR app and how you then connect it to your Grasshopper model. So I think if you would like to try that one out, that's, I think, a really nice starting point.
And maybe good to mention there that is the Excel doesn't need anything
Yeah.
installed or so, but for Rhino you have to have Grasshopper run actively in your machine. So that's a good thing to
yeah.
add.
So that's indeed a bit more work. So yeah, so with Excel, indeed, it just runs basically on our servers, but with if you want to do the Grasshopper thing, you need the so-called worker, and this makes it a bit more complex. Yeah. So that's a good remark. All right, so maybe what we would like to do now is I think it's a good moment to take a break. And then when we are back, we would like to start. Just 1 second. I'll share my screen. Yeah, so basically the idea is that you can then start with creating your own app. And what we would like to do is that we just do a very brief round where everybody just quickly explains, okay, what would I like to do? Because that also helps us to help you out. But if you don't have any idea and you just say, okay, I would like to explore something, then also that's fine to explain. And also I think at that moment, just let us know if you haven't gone through the installation, then we can also help you out with that. So, and then, we have quite some time left to work on that and to just try to work on that your case, and we can help you out, of course. Maybe if at some point a lot of people are interested in something, we can also share a bit more. So we will just be flexible in that. So I say, let's just take a break of about let's say 10 minutes. And then we will in 10 minutes we will get back, and then we can do the round, and then we can continue with building your own thing.
And if there's anyone with urgent setup issue, feel free to raise your hand or unleash your voice now, because we're happy to assist there.
Okay. Great.
Thank you.
See you. Okay, let me just, because I can imagine that sometimes we often see that in the beginning it can be a little bit overwhelming when you're working with VIKTOR, because you have the CLI and then you have development workspace. So if you are not got this running yet or fully understand it, then don't feel feel ashamed or anything about it. So let me just recap in 1 second really quickly what's what. So basically what you see over here, in this case, this is my IDE, so my development environment. That could also be code spaces if you run it in the browser. So what you see over here is basically you just have a folder with the code of your app. Then the app.py file, that's the most important file, because here you have your logic where you define your input parameters, your views, etc., what we have been showing. So this is the main thing that you are working in, and then we have some extra things. So you could have some extra Python packages that you can use, or indeed something like that you can define your app type, etc. But keep in mind that this app.py file, that's the main file that you will be working in. And then what you see over here, this is in the terminal. In this case, you have your the CLI running. So that's this thing which shows often this nice ASCII art. And this CLI, and this is something that you use on the command line. And the main thing, there are some different commands, but the start command is really important. In this case, it will start this app, which is the app that you have over here. And then here on the right hand side, you will see your browser, and here is your development workspace. So this is the most important place where you are developing. So just to recap that shortly, this is development workspace in your browser. Then you have your IDE with being the app.py file, the most important file, where you will be mainly adding the logic. And then your CLI, which is running in the terminal. All right, so that being said, let's make the round. So try to, we would like everybody to ask or to shortly explain what you would like to do for the remaining of the workshop, and maybe just quickly let us know if you where you are in the process, if you were able to finish the installation and the starter guide. Let's see, Amara.
Oh, yes, sir.
Are you done using? Did you go through the installation and the starter guide?
Yeah, the installation and start guides have been done, and
Okay.
VIKTOR is running on the browser.
Nice, that's
Yep.
great. What would you like to do for the rest of this workshop?
For me, I was like expecting a little bit about like 3D geometry on the web.
Right.
So, because like all of our data in our company is like already on the some DB, so we don't need to like do something with the Excel sheets anymore.
Right.
And I was just like trying to visualize basic BIM files or maybe like FBX files, whatever, on web. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, so I think what's a good starting point for you is you have in the documentation, we have results 3D models, and here we have different ways. So we have basically a geometry module ourselves with which you can create visualizations, but we also support other formats. So you can, for example, also visualize IFC files or 3DM files or GLTF. Yeah, so those kind of things are supported as well. So I think that this is a nice starting point. Yeah, so if you go to the docs and then under results and visualizations, 3D models, yeah, I think that's a good starting point for you.
Oh, okay, thank you. So what about the map thing? Does it like support like GIS models or?
Yeah, so well, it's indeed we have a map view, and on that also we have some own, let's say some built-in things with which you can create points and polygons. But also we support GeoJSONs, and that's often I don't know if you are aware of that format.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's often what you can also get, for example, from other GIS packages, that in a GeoJSON format you can get information, and then basically you can also send something like that back. Yeah.
There is
All
actually
right,
a
thank you.
template file on a template on the GIS analysis, I think.
Yeah, that's a good one.
To not start over or fully, I would say our GIS integration is better than our FBX integration. So it could also be that this is a nice way to start playing with it. It's the blue one, the fifth one.
This one, yeah.
It basically does some GIS loading and displaying them on a map. So this could also be a nice start point for you to play with, see how it behaves and see how it works with these data.
Yeah, that's a very good one.
Okay, great. I'll take a look at it maybe later because it's like too late for me now in this time zone. Yeah, but thank you.
What time is it over there, Amara? Your place?
It's becoming like 1 a.m.
Ah, really? Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, Brian, what about you?
Yeah, my hope is to kind of get I'm going through the sample file, the Grasshopper sample introduction that you guys have there, and I want to kind of test it, get that. And then once I get that going, I would like to, try my own thing. I don't know what that is yet. It's probably one of the scripts that I've done for the company or something. But yeah, that's my goal for today.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. Yeah, I think the tutorial is indeed a good starting point. What might also be nice to check out is also for the other people who are into Grasshopper. We have quite some. This is a blog that we recently posted. There's also what's also quite interesting is that basically behind the VIKTOR app, you can also communicate with VIKTOR app via an API. So everything that you can do in the browser, you can also do via the API. So that means that you can also, let's say that you have some data in your VIKTOR app, you can also pull it out via the API or push it in. So we have documentation on that as well, how you can communicate. And in that way, you could also make some flows like this, where you basically, in this case, pull data from a VIKTOR app, and then so it works with some access token. And then based on that, you can also, let's say, use those parameters in Grasshopper as well. And also what you could do, and I think that's also quite a nice example, that you can also use, let's say, a VIKTOR app as a calculator in your Grasshopper model. Since this is an example of this. So this is a VIKTOR app. So you have some input and some output. And in this case, it's just a simple beam. But what we also made in this example is that you have a Grasshopper node where you have these same inputs. And actually here, it's just calling this VIKTOR app, and then it shows the output results. So this is also, I think, quite a cool example where you can have, let's say quite a complex, or let's say an extensive app, and then in this way you can easily use it in Grasshopper. And I think what's a big advantage of this, for example, is that you can, let's say, reuse this in different Grasshopper models. So that also might be nice to check out this blog. We also have the Grasshopper files. You can just download them and have a look at those as well.
Sweet, thank you.
You're welcome. Charles, what about you? Charlie?
Hey, I'm in a similar boat. The Grasshopper exercise seems interesting to tackle. Or what I was thinking about doing to get an exploration is just really create a basic Excel calculator, like Celsius to Fahrenheit, whatever. Try to do that in Excel, try to do it in Grasshopper, try to do it in just basic code to really try to get a good swath of how VIKTOR is running across the board.
Yeah, nice. Okay, sounds great.
Really great to keep it so small.
Yeah,
It's a really smart thing to do to get everything.
yeah, cool. Yeah, I can imagine that the Grasshopper, since you also need the worker, it takes a bit more time. So I think it's indeed, I can imagine that maybe you don't want to dive into that completely, but maybe explore it a bit and explore a bit of the different things. Yeah. Okay. Curtis.
Yeah.
Have you managed to go through the installation? Hi.
Yeah, hi. I finished all the installation and it's worked well.
Nice.
Yeah. And for my goal, I mainly also want to explore about like the Grasshopper thing, but much more about using those kind of tool related to building performance analysis or environmental analysis, just like the Ladybug tool you were showing, and maybe Climate Studio, that's another one I'm also using. So I have a question, is that for all the plugin we have in Grasshopper, do you guys have any kind of list that you're allowed to use, or like it just like can be any kind of plugin?
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe Rick, you can answer this since you're more of a Grasshopper expert than I am.
So because we use Rhino Compute, you can use any plugin. So, but they have to be installed on the place where you run compute. That's how it works. So basically, compute is a headless version of Grasshopper. So there are only a few limits when you want to do, for instance, human UI, these kind of things, because they require really a UI, because that's you're sort of replacing human UI. That's like number one thing. Or if you have, for instance, Galapagos or these kind of things, they open up a new window and they really do something with the active Rhino document. Overall, like everything almost every plugin is compatible with Rhino Compute, or is actually becoming more compatible with Rhino Compute, because that's just a really great way for Rhino to also develop this. So you'll see that almost everything, like Caramba or Ladybug, all these big ones, Weaverbird, all these ones are compatible with Rhino Compute and make it super easy. But there is, it's still a bit of a tricky situation here and there, but it's actually really nice and really promising. Also a bit new for us, so I think we've been working on this the past year or so. So we're slowly starting to do a lot of projects with it, but it's also here and there we love feedback in that direction as well. But to answer your question, there's no list, because we can do anyone.
Okay. Yeah. And also have another question, is that sometimes the environmental analysis might take like super long. It can be like 10 or more minutes. Is that something you are running locally, or you need to build your virtual server for the Rhino?
So for now, I would say start developing yourself. Use your machine, and eventually you want to do it in sort of a production stage, so that it's on a nice scalable solution on a virtual machine somewhere.
Okay.
But I would say for now, and for the short term, make sure that it runs. You know, sort of what the capabilities are, what stuff is difficult or what stuff is easy.
Yeah, but I think that would be indeed quite a nice next step, Curtis, that you could say if you have these heavy analysis, that you could indeed set up a virtual machine with, let's say, a powerful virtual machine, and that you can then communicate with that. So that's, I think, quite a nice opportunity. Instead of then running those kind of heavy things on your local machine, that you run that on a virtual machine in the cloud. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to try Endo again. Not sure if... Okay. Was worth a try. Fernando, how are you doing, and what are your plans?
I'm doing fine. Everything is working fine. A little bit surprising on myself. Yeah, no, I'm mainly interested in the Rhino geometry visualization possibilities, and
Okay.
obviously Grasshopper. And yeah, I was just exploring different possibilities with that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So quite
Something
with
specific you
with
wanna build there?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, what did you say, Rick?
Sorry, I wanted to know, Fernando, if there was something specific you wanted to build, like in the cooking album.
I'm just testing it and seeing what I can get. Probably I'm not gonna get anything at all,
Yeah.
but at least I mean
No, that's not the
anything
right
that is
attitude.
relevant at all. But yeah, no, I'm just testing new things.
Perfect.
Cool.
Thanks.
Great. George, what about you? Maybe not here at the moment. Are you here, George? I cannot hear you. Maybe you are still muted. I'm not here for a sec. That's of course also fine. Then Hiroya, how are you doing? Okay, then let's try Jesse.
Hey, yeah, I got stuff to talk about. Thanks for your help. There's two things I was interested in is like making like a simple working with simple geometry to sort of work on like siding of some of a house. So like, you know, just rotating it depending on like kind of the orientation
Yeah.
of a site. And then I was also curious about like embedding like the VIKTOR user interface in like another website. Is that something you could kind of cover?
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a good one. So I can bit of info on that. So for the geometry, the first thing you said was that mainly that you basically create a geometry, let's say from Python using VIKTOR, or do you mean more that you use
Yeah, Python using VIKTOR, and then the workflow I'm interested in is that to like Grasshopper or something else. Like Fusion 360 is actually the other one.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I think it's nice to indeed then we also have a tutorial on 3D models, and then you can see a bit what kind of things we have available to create 3D models. And what's also maybe good to know is that you can also use, there are also quite some powerful Python packages for creating 3D models. So.
Yeah, are there any you suggest?
Yeah, so what's something that we recently made available? It's cut query. So this is quite a powerful one, and yeah, it depends a bit what kind of things that you want to work on. But this is, for example, quite powerful also when you would have, let's say, Boolean operations or those kind of things, or that you have these curved edges. So I think that's one. This one is also on the in the templates. So this cut query, and basically the repository is just available here as well. So you can see some more explanation about how this works. Yeah, and I think what you see over here is that you can create this kind of app, change some parameters. You will see it here in the 3D view, and also in this case, that's also I think quite nice to generate this kind of drawings as well, which are also just updated with different view direction and those kind of things. So that might be an interesting one to explore as well.
Okay, cool. And how about the embedding?
Yeah, that's a good one. So what we allow for when you have public apps, so this is, for example, a public app, then you can just embed it
Okay.
like this. So you just get an iframe, and this iframe you can just embed in a website.
Cool.
So that's actually also what you see. So for example, in our documentation, we also use this. Let's say, for example, yeah. So here you also see basically just an app embedded, in this case, in our documentation. And so in this way, you can just embed it in any website. Yeah.
Okay. And I didn't see this anywhere, but what's the pricing structure for what's that?
The pricing structure? Yeah. So basically with our free version, you can have limited functionalities. So you can create public apps, but we don't allow for having your own environment and inviting colleagues, etc. So basically that's what we just have. It's just a license model, and it's basically based on number of users that you have available. And then we typically have these tiers a bit, typical for the size of companies. But simply put, it's just a license model based on number of users.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah. Let's see. Paige, how are you doing?
I'm good. I have it all set up through the
Great.
demo. And I think I was interested in the Excel spreadsheet to some kind of data visualization, and then kind of learning more about the Grasshopper capabilities.
Okay. Okay, nice. Yeah, so I think again, I think these tutorials are really nice starting points. And also the template apps, basically they're just the same things, but in the tutorials they're a bit more explained. So I think here you can, this is the logical place to find these things. And of course, what I just showed, the Excel converter, you can also just use to convert the Excel sheet.
Awesome.
Definitely
I guess I had
use-
another question about IESVE, an energy modeling program. And it's have you ever had anyone that integrated data from that into VIKTOR?
Oh, that's a good one. Rick, have you ever heard about this one?
No, not so fast.
So it's called
ISV.
ISVG.
No, it's IESVE.
ISVE.
Yep, that's it.
So basically, I never heard of this. Could be that it's used, but do you know if you also can communicate with this in an automated way, that it has some kind of API or anything to do something automated with it?
Yeah, there is an API. I
Okay.
definitely need
There's a
to.
whole Python scripting page on the bottom.
Oh,
It's
yeah?
very nice. If you
Okay.
go all the way down, I think that's perfectly fine. Here on the right, resources, Python scripting.
Ah, yeah.
Looks pretty nice. I think that's
Okay, cool.
not a problem at
Yeah.
all.
Nice. Yeah. So then how this works is let's go back to the docs. So we basically have a generic way how you can integrate with any desktop package. So what you can see here at develop apps, and then if you go to integrations, we have just a generic way. If you look at more, so basically, wait, just yeah, 1 second to show this. So basically what you can do, we have a so-called worker, what I mentioned before. And what you can do with this worker, you can just start any process on another machine, basically. So this can be either just your laptop, and then with the worker you can connect that to your web app, but also you can run this worker on a, let's say, a Windows virtual machine. So this would be a way how you could connect that. So let's say that if you have this running, you can have it locally on your machine, but also you could have it, let's say, on a virtual machine where you have this software. And then using the worker, you can connect it. And then you could say that the worker basically runs the Python code with which you can connect, run the, let's say, the things that you want to do in that package. Yeah, so this is, and we have specific workers for specific packages. So for example, we have a Grasshopper worker, which makes it basically easier to set this up. But we also have a generic worker, and with that generic worker, you can run anything you want to do. So in that way, you always have a way to integrate with third-party software.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Let's see. I think we have everybody who's still here. Nico, maybe you as well? Didn't ask you yet?
Yeah, I'm very interested in the worker and connecting with Grasshopper and all these other things, but for today, I'm just going to try and convert a couple Jupyter Notebook analysis of weather data, and see if I can get the calculations and the charting into VIKTOR and make that translation. Something that would be kind of like the reach is if I can also set up a API request to fetch the data so that a user could maybe drop a point on a map or provide some information and get the data. And also if there's an interface for someone to drag and drop, say, an Excel file. Because the way a lot of these weather notebooks are set up is that it's usually a pretty standardized data source, but it can be a little tricky sometimes to pinpoint the right sensor you're trying to point to or whatever. That is harder to automate. So someone usually downloads a CSV and then drops it into the notebook and runs it. So could we drag and drop in Excel? Do I have to have maybe a library of pre-canned Excels that you choose which one you care about? That's the kind of technical aspect and UI experience I'm kind of interested in exploring. I imagine creating the charts is going to be pretty easy.
Yeah, nice. So I think and then you mean with the API, you mean mainly that you call, let's say, from the VIKTOR app other APIs.
Yeah, like so if there's a published CSV out there, someone else is hosting it. Can I fetch that directly from VIKTOR, or do I have to go like drop it into my app?
Yeah, good one. Yeah, so in principle, basically since VIKTOR is just running as a web app, if you have access to that, you can just if you can do it, let's say, from Python in a Jupyter notebook or whatever, then you could also just use that in VIKTOR as well. We also have some possibilities. Let's say it could be, of course, maybe that you have some authentication on something. We also have a way where you can also securely store access tokens as we call them environment variables. So that might also be something that, let's say that if you have something from a secure, you need some access tokens. We also have a way how you can basically configure these environment variables on an, you can place them next to an app, let's say, and then in the app code, you can use those environment variables as well. So in that way, you can work with access tokens and those kind of things. For the rest, I think, let's say on the input side, we indeed, it's something I think I already showed. We have a way where you can just have an upload field where you can also upload a CSV or anything. What also might be quite nice to check out is that we also have, let's say, a native table input. So in this way, you can also just have, let's say, just in the browser a table, and what might be the advantage of that is that you can make sure that you have certain columns, for example, defined, and that you need to adhere to that. So that might be also be something interesting to check out for you.
Yeah, this is so you could like paste in a 10 by 10 cells.
Exactly.
Oh yeah,
Exactly.
that's very
As long as the columns match with your,
Yeah.
it's not automatically scalable in the right direction.
Yeah, so indeed,
moving
it's
the columns.
sort of the columns are defined in your app, and then you can add any number of rows. Yeah.
very cool.
Okay. Nice. All right. Well, this 1 minute per person took a bit longer, but I think that's
maybe good to mention also how to reach us if you have questions.
Yeah.
After this this meeting.
Yeah, maybe we can do that. Maybe when people are when it's very late. Yeah. Yeah, maybe we can. Let's see. Yeah, of course. I think we will. It's also nice to keep a bit of the Slack channel. We'll try to follow that as well. But otherwise, maybe we can also just drop our email addresses, and then you can just reach out to us via that way. Yeah, so please just go ahead with exploring, and then let us know if you have any questions. And also, I think it's really nice if you have any questions to also just ask them. Just here in the call, because I have the feeling that then those kind of things are interesting for other people as well.
I have Charlie asked in Slack a little bit about the VIKTOR specific syntax, and I think it would be useful for me to if you guys could talk through that for a moment, and what I mean by that. So let me share my screen. So I have a running app here. And I understand that parameterization is basically controlling this inputs side of things, and the controller class is controlling the right half of the screen, or the these tabs. And the key thing here is we've got a little VKT plot view. So that's obviously setting the titles of our tabs. And then we have a method. So this method can be named anything, I think. That's like free form, but it gets whatever's returned from this method is getting tagged to this your view. So these are kind of specific constrained views types, or like view classes. I can see in the documentation those listed here: images, data tables, maps. So these, I guess, are the kind of pre-canned classes. Is there flexibility? Like, do these require really specific returned
Yeah.
Yes, I think it
instances?
touches into. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll stop there. I think just kind of like the relationship between understanding and learning
Yeah.
these specific classes and the way in which they relate back to the plot view, and how much flexibility we have in terms of what gets returned from our methods.
Could you maybe enlarge the text a little bit?
Oh,
so
yeah,
everyone
of
can
course,
read
of
it a little
course.
bit.
Mhm.
Oh, that's very intense. No, thank you. But I think Jesse in the beginning of this meeting already asked, like, okay, how is, for instance, the computation and displays done? So what is sort of VIKTOR doing? Is everything Python, or what's going on in the back? So for instance, in this view, we have created sort of a way to translate a plotly figure to something that you can display. And that's what this view is doing. So for every type of view, you have a specific view and result. So they always need to be paired. So let's say you have here a plotly view and a plotly result, and below you have a table view and a table result. So these always need to be connected, and always sort of require some kind of specific input for a plotly result that is actually the plotly figure, and for a table result that's a data frame. Or so we support pandas data frames, for instance, but we also support nested lists. For instance, for a geometry view, you can upload GLTB files, but also 3DM files. So in the back, we check sort of, okay, what are you trying to do, and then we'll make sure that it's rendered properly. And that's sort of what VIKTOR is doing in the back. So you define the logic of what you're doing, and in the back we translate it to a renderable image or model using some nice external software.
This documentation, window.
Yeah, and I think
This documentation here is basically the list of potential tabs. And is there one of these, I guess, HTML web that is like as long as you return valid HTML,
Yeah,
it's gonna
this is
work.
code free.
Okay.
Yeah, you can make the wildest things there.
Yeah, okay. But otherwise, like, you can get really far by just using things like tables, plots, and I guess maybe this show summary.
Data. Yeah.
Okay.
You want to add anything?
Yeah, so indeed the whole concept is that with these kind of things, we just try to make it as easy as possible to visualize these kind of things. So so for example, that you can just return a PDF and that you don't have to think about, okay, how do I render a PDF in a web app, for example? You can just, and the same holds for a 3D model. So these views, we just, the main goal of it, that we just make it very simple to do these kind of things. But indeed, the web view, so the HTML view, yeah, that's, let's say, the big escape hatch. And with that, you can, basically just, also you can add JavaScript and everything. So you can make, you can do whatever you want basically by returning that as well. Yeah. And I think
even,
the other thing with the specific views is that we also have ways in which you have interactivity. So for example, we have the whole concept of VIKTOR is that it's sort of that you have your input defined in your parameterization so that it's stateless, which is, I think, a very powerful concept. But often, sometimes from, let's say, UX perspective, you would like to have some interaction with a view and input, right? So for example, that you can click on a map, and that's then something that we offer as well. So you have a field with which you can click on a map, for example, and then it actually fills that as an input, and then you can easily render that in your map view as well. Yeah.
Nice. And are those are those separate from the views? That would be like the
Yeah.
map field that we'd use up here in the parameterization.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then basically what happens is if you then click on the map, then it just it fills it with your latitude longitude coordinates, and then with those coordinates you can easily display it on the map. But also if you have these latitude longitude coordinates, you can of course also do other things as well. This is, I think, quite a nice one too.
so
You
yeah,
will need a view for that. You need a map view to interact
oh,
with.
a corresponding. So
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
And then and so it's some is there like a prop here that
No, so it's only now
links the
possible.
view back to the, not for the Plotly view specifically, but like, well, I'll just look in the doc. I think you guys really answered the core question, and hopefully that was helpful for others, not just myself.
Yeah, very good question. Okay.
Quick, picking up on some of Nico's question earlier about sort of the structure of that app document. Do you suggest that any calculations, any computes, they happen within the controller class or versus the parameterization class?
So if there's so I would say any compute in the controller class. So the parameterization is really about the inputs and gathering some inputs. You can run some functions. Let's say you have an option field and you want to calculate whatever needs to be in the option field. These calculations are very okay to do. There is actually also a hard limit on the parameterization. So if it takes more than 15 seconds, it will also crash because it should be like less than a second to calculate. And then you can have all your heavy stuff in your controller. It was also nice if you're really doing heavy calculations. We have built in sort of user messages. So let's say it takes like 2 minutes. You can also update the user every now and then to say, okay, we're now 50% or you're almost there, which is a really great added benefit of doing that in a controller. So I would definitely always recommend doing all compute things
in the controller.
In the controller.
If you are doing something with a fairly involved input section, let's say, for example, you have a series of questions that as you answer them, it sort of filters down subsequent inputs that the user can put in, right? Let's say you have a drop-down menu of building types, skyscraper, airport, whatever. And then based on that selection, it then limits the range of some of the other inputs. Can that happen in the parameterization class?
Yeah, definitely. So that's like a perfect example of something you want to do in the parameterization class. So let me also grab our docs again, because that's just quite amazing. So what we have is sort of two ways. I'm not fully sure where it is in this menu. Oh, this was actually when I was talking about sort of these messages to your users, but I was looking for callback functions. Page on that. One sec. Should be in there. Input validation. Is that it? That's not what I'm looking for. Do you know where it is, Stijn?
The callbacks.
Yeah, or a message about that. Basically, if you have an option field, so if you have an option field, you can sort of preset the options like this. So you have sort of option 1 and option 2. But you could also create sort of a list of options yourself, and that can also happen in a function. Let me just code it. That's quicker actually.
Yeah, found it. So if you
options, I would create this
in the chat.
Oh, thanks. Yes, nice. This is what I'm talking about. So basically what we have here is first an object option field based on sort of a material group. So we have aluminum and steel. And then you have a second one which actually gets the material type in a new option field. And that is actually running a function. And this function actually has the params again. So this can read out your current active material group. And if that is actually aluminum, then you return all these types. Otherwise, you return these. And maybe if you have select nothing, it also return nothing. So that means that when you have selected here steel, this would also fill with all the steel options and back and forth. And this is what we call a callback function. So this is actually a function that's called from your parameterization. And there is also some standard standard options where you can sort of use them sort of like this. So this is sort of doing the same thing. Basically, we create a list and we set the visibility to be a lookup function. It's doing the same thing, but we generally like these kind of callback functions more because it just gives you so much more freedom. But you can always also set the visibility of an item on and on, off and on, based on another parameter. So that's hopefully that's answering your question there.
Yeah, no, totally. Are all these things kind of like the visibility and sort of all VKT specific inputs and all that stuff? Are those fully documented, or is it kind of like a little exploratory?
Yeah, so the whole SDK is built up in classes, groups, and all these kind of things. The VKT is just a simplified input. Makes it easy for us to not care about all these inputs and where they are. But I would say that we have in our docs, you always have sort of the SDK, and you can use this search bar as well. So let's say you have a number field. You always have sort of this SDK reference with all the groups in there, within parameterization, all the options over here, and see whatever. There's always an example. All the parameters explain what they do, how to use it. So let's say I have an option field. It shows me also like okay, how do I use it, and yeah, what are sort of options to use it, and there's it's quite extensive. Yeah, basically the same for views as well. So these are all our views paired with view and result. So let's say I have a map view. This is how I use it, and these are the parameters attached. So yeah, there's a quite extensive SDK reference there.
Impressive, thank you.
Find it here. Right? No, that's not true. Just.
And maybe also one last thing, Charles, to explain. I think that's also good to understand. Let's say that if you would, the fact that you indeed have your logic in your controller, that doesn't mean that let's say this sometimes it could be, of course, that you have like a full script in here, because what you can still do is organize this in another way where you also just call something else. So in this case, for example, and that's where you can just use Python, how it works. So in this case, I made another Python file in which I have some function, and then basically just how you can do this in Python, you can import something else, and then you can call that as well. So in this way, you can also really easily set your code up in a modular way and maybe in different views call the same piece of code and those kind of things as well. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
If you're doing there's not really like an initialization block in the app. You mentioned the ideas, it's stateless. So like say I've got 3 CSVs that are like kind of the back end for calculations and I want those loaded. I would just load those in one of the views, right? Because the view is always going to load right away. And then you could just rely on one of those views to kind of like ingest some content. And then that would be, is it still available across multiple views? Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so this is an interesting point. So this is, of course, something that you more often see, right? You have, let's say, something that you don't maybe want to rerun or reuse in multiple views. So let's say if it's logic, you could quite easily, of course, as I just showed, let's say, call the same logic from multiple views. But also we offer ways to, to let's say make that more efficient, right? Because that's I think the other thing. And what are ways to do it? So first of all, we have memoization.
Okay.
And what this does is that you can, that's basically something that let me just share my screen. Where you could give an extra give this as an extra I forgot the name, decorator, sorry. It's also becoming a bit late. And what this basically does is that it automatically will memoize this. So if you run this same function with the same input, it will just give back the same output. So in this way, you could, for example, make these kind of things more efficient, that it doesn't recalculate, let's say, the same things. Another thing that we offer is there's actually a way to make a VIKTOR app not stateless, because this is quite often something that's requested, is that we have a possibility to set actually storage. And this is quite, let's say, generic. But what you could do is that you could, in a certain way, that you set something on storage, and then in another view, for example, that you get something from storage. And this way you have quite an effective way how you can also make sure that, let's say, you do some pre-processing of something, and then you can on storage put that, and then you can use it again in different views as well. Yeah.
Right.
Does that answer your question, Nico?
Yeah, it does. I think this storage.set, is that called inside one of the views, or can it just sit at the top of the file? You're still like calling the memoization and the storage through the kind of initial loading of any of the views. It's not like something that sits ever external to those methods.
Yeah, that's indeed the case. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Great.
Yeah, but what you could also do is basically, I'm not sure actually if there's a way, Rick, probably if you use this because it also loads the parameterization. So I think also if you would use the callback function that Rick showed earlier, where in the parameterization you can also call something. You could, for example, also use this. Indeed, the tricky thing could be that your parameterization will become slow at some point, which then makes the UI feel less responsive.
It's a
Another
good
thing-
backup if you have a very big calculation you want to do within your application for your parameterization. In that case, it could be the faster way. Still be a bit slow, but it's faster.
Yeah, and I think another one is that what we also offer is that, basically it's just an action button. So this will just show up as a button in your parameterization. And what you can also do, and basically you can also just connect this to a method, and you can put anything you want behind that. So you could also say, okay, I want to sort of, when you hit that button, that at that moment it does something and it sets something on storage, and then you can reuse it again. So in this way, there are also ways to, let's say, break out of that thing that something only runs when you load a view.
Right. And you might want to do that, like you would set up your views and your parameters to work even with maybe like an empty data set, or like, you'd set it up so the default no content would load and it still show the user something, and then make them press this button to do kind of a back-end initialization that would propagate through the views, and maybe even update some of the
Input parameters.
Or input parameters.
Yeah, that's also something which is possible. So I think that's quite nice. This is something that's also in that.
Well, you guys have really thought about all the angles. I mean, the versatility. Of course, it gets, you really probably need to become a real coder to ingest all that. But I think it's amazing the way you span the kind of a first flush approachability, but then really leverage the modern web ecosystem in such a kind of comprehensive way.
I think there's the strength, right? So it's a super easy for people to pick up, but still for very experienced programmers, it's still very useful, because it's basically, if you're familiar with microservices or so, it's basically the same. And even for like, because we also do like SSO and dashboarding for users, it's also for managing people super nice. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And I think it's quite a challenge sometimes. It's sort of a balancing act. And on one hand, you want to give the fact that it's a framework makes it really quick, but also sometimes, for example, and that's something that we are improving continuously, is that also that you have enough flexibility. And sometimes you feel a little bit stuck in the framework, and that's something that we are that you let's say could think about. Okay, this UX could be, I would rather have this button over there, but then so that's the continuous balancing act. But we are taking, when we get these kind of feedback, we are continuously improving and making sure that, let's say, doing something simple remains quick and simple, and then also making it possible to do something more complex. And I think this is quite a nice case, also in line with your question, Nico. Well, this is actually quite an interesting case also for the Grasshopper interest. So what you see over here is that so this is just a Grasshopper model, and then you can push something to a VIKTOR app via the API. And what's in this case, what it uses is it actually uploads. And so Rick made this, so it sends the geometry in a JSON towards this app, and then you can add some other parameters here. But if you press the load JSON button on that call, it actually fetches information from the JSON and pastes it in this table field in this case. So in this way, you can also indeed fill stuff using buttons, and then this is just some nice dashboard with which you can then visualize stuff from that Grasshopper model.
Oh yeah, this is a good example of this use case.
Yeah.
Especially when you add the dynamic upload of the
Yeah.
kind of like initialization data set.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think what's also quite a nice case is also for this one, we made another case, and in this case it's also the, let's say, the Grasshopper push. Yeah, so this is just parametric, let's say, frame. And this is also pushed. In this case, it also, as a JSON file, it sends the geometry, the beam coordinates. And then what's quite nice is that this is a typical case, for example, that let's say a structural engineer continues with this, so that you can apply load. So here you see also these interaction possibilities. So you can just click on a geometry to apply a load. And then here on the left-hand side, you see that you can add some extra parameters. And so you can dynamically add loads basically, and you can click where they are, and then you can set the load and the direction. And this, so in this way, there's quite a lot of flexibility to add these kind of things. And then in this case, we connect to OpenSeas, which is a Python package with which you can do structural analysis. And it basically just runs this this model with this load. And then I think what's nice about the flow, let's say if you then add 2 floors, you can just push the model again, and then you select the new. And you could also automate this, but what I quite like about this flow is that you are in charge of saying, okay, now I want this new version, and then basically it just updates and then you can load it again. So these kind of flows, using the API are also, I think, very interesting.
Yeah. Wow. And just a year ago, I was just beginning to think about the relationship between Rhino and VIKTOR.
Yeah.
A lot of great progress on that front.
Yeah. Thanks. All right. So I think we're almost through. 6 minutes left. So I think it's nice to round it up or round off. I think time always flies in these kind of workshops. It's of course also sometimes a bit difficult when it's online to get a feel for what's happening, and if everybody is grasping and is able to make the progress. So hopefully it has been interesting for everybody. I can imagine maybe that time is short, so so maybe you didn't fully achieve your goals, but hopefully we managed to give you some insights. So maybe we can have just a few more minutes left if anybody has any questions regarding anything technical or non-technical or whatever. Just feel free to ask.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I'm running, is that okay? I'm running this tutorials on Grasshopper, and I set everything up, but at the end, I got this, when I clicked the run Grasshopper, I got a message saying something went wrong, and it doesn't show the visualization part. Maybe I'm not connecting to my Grasshopper running on my PC. If you have a quick tips on that, that'd be cool. Or this is probably like a very basic question. So
no, I think what I expect, and I see also Rick already looking, is that did you install the worker, and did you have?
I did follow the steps, and I ran it from the what do you call it, prompt. So should be running on the background.
And maybe you can just share your screen for a sec.
I see.
Maybe Rick can immediately.
Yeah, I'm not sure this is the appropriate question for this. but
I
I'm
see.
just gonna
It's a workshop, so it's
so I got this
yeah.
and
Mhm.
but like
Very cool.
what I'm getting is this after clicking run grasshoppers and somehow then I made this grasshopper thing follow your diagram. Then I saved this under within the same folder that I installed this my grasshopper app here. Then
Nice.
then after that this is probably indication that Waka is running.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so I'm not sure what's I might be missing like a very basic stuff.
So when you encounter such an error, we don't like to provide the error message in the product, right? So if an end user ever comes in, it's nicer that it says something went wrong, contact the developer or something like that. But for as a developer, you should be able to see the error message always in your terminal, right?
Okay.
So wherever you have run VIKTOR start, I think it's a terminal somewhere. That is where the error message will show up.
I see.
So I think it's in
So,
VS Code that you are using, Nero. So if you open, I think it's
yeah, one to the.
So that might be the original one. Then
yeah. So I
This
think
is also
if you open VS Code, the
VS
one
Code.
this is the
Okay.
one.
That's the one.
Yes.
I
that's
see.
So
the
it
one.
says you have not installed Path. So Path is actually a part of a package you have
Okay.
to install. Maybe that's actually also something. Not sure if that's in the tutorial. But if you go
Okay.
to your code, it will be
Okay.
a quick fix.
Okay.
You have to import Path in your.
I see. So I'm
It
missing.
will also it shows with the yellow squiggly lines, so to say, in your app code. It says these yellow squiggly lines in line 19 and 29 and 30. You are using their sort of Path and JSON and Rhino 3DM.
Okay.
These are external packages.
Okay. That's true. That's
So
true.
they need to be imported, and I think when you
So you
import
need to
Path and Rhino 3DM.
point to my local location of the Grasshopper file. Yes. Yeah, that was a very basic question. Another probably like long-term question is somebody was talking about a virtual system to run this Grasshopper app not locally from my computer as a server. So that could be like a next step if I want to do a crowdsourcing based on my application for somebody using it remotely from their computer. And if you could sort of elaborate on the next step for me to pursue that kind of a track, if you have any suggestion or if there's any sort of tutorials showing how to do that.
Yeah, so I think we also in that tutorial at the end, we explained this a bit. And there are multiple ways to do this. So what you could do is you could basically what you now have locally, that you install Rhino Grasshopper on a virtual machine, and the worker you just run on that virtual machine. And then basically everybody, when you publish the app, everybody who then uses the app, then it's just running on that virtual machine. So that's a possibility. So that's how the worker system is often used, where you just run that on a central virtual machine basically, and then everybody running the app runs on there. So that's and we explained it also in the tutorial, I think. Otherwise, just let us know, then we can help you out further. Another option would be to connect to Rhino Compute, or you could also, for example, use Shapediver to connect to. Yeah, there are multiple ways, but yeah.
And when you say virtual, I'm a little bit new to this notion, but for example, like a renting server from AWS or what people do for that? Like, I don't know so much about this area.
Yeah, so what you can indeed do is, so it's often, I think, what we see at companies that they have an IT department who do these kind of things. So what you could think about is that you have indeed on Azure or on AWS, basically what you can just have is a Windows machine, but it's a virtual machine. And then you can just log into that and install all kinds of things there. But then it's a central machine which is always running. And then in this way, you can set that up really nicely where you, yeah, for example, on heavy calculations, it's not running locally. And these virtual machines can run also Windows or other operating systems. We can also help with those kind of things. So sometimes also customers ask us, for example, hey, could you set that up for us? So that's also something that we sometimes that we can deliver as well. Yeah, what we can help with. Yeah.
I see. Thank you so much.
Okay. And then maybe it's good to note is that, let's say, this is only the case where you have, let's say, an integration with an external package. But when you just have the Python code and those kind of things, then you can just publish it and then it's all running on our server. So you don't need anything else. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so we're a bit over time. So maybe, I don't know if I saw that Brian, were you trying to ask a question as well? Maybe we can do that as a final question.
Yeah, I think I'm really close. I'm actually one step behind Taro.
Okay.
But I just can't get the app. Let me share my screen. So like I follow the steps for Grasshopper. Let me see if you can. Okay, so I followed the steps for the Grasshopper. I brought all the code in here. I was able to connect, but down here when I refresh, doesn't show. But I mean, what I was doing is I was running it from here and it disconnects. It says connection closed after keyboard interrupted. So I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong.
I think you have sort of two different applications in the same folder and it's getting a bit confused by what it needs to load. So on the left-hand side, I see you have two folders like Grasshopper tutorial and my Grasshopper app. And then there's app.py and changelog. And I think it's trying to run the lowest app.py. So if you were to copy over all this code in there, I think you need the origin. It needs to know sort of where it's running this app from. And I think it's gotten a little bit confused now.
Okay. So should I delete something here or copy it where?
Yeah, maybe the best way is to copy over this code into the lowest app.py. And that might require sort of redoing your install because you need to run a compute or run a 3DM, I think. So if you copy over this to the lowest app.py, I think that will work.
What is this one right here?
This one. Yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay.
And it probably also will require you to also copy over the requirements txt and the Grasshopper file to the lowest folder and then delete Grasshopper tutorial and my Grasshopper app.
So I'm gonna delete.
Okay, then maybe Rick, you might have a little bit of time extra to see to help out, but maybe we can in the meantime end the session. So I also added the last message in the chat and also in Slack. So thanks everybody a lot for joining. Hopefully, you got more insight into what VIKTOR is and what's possible. It would be really nice if you we added in the chat a short feedback survey. It's just, I think, 1 minute work. It's just a few questions. And that would help us a lot with improving these kind of things as well. So if you would have the time, they're just 6 questions, I think, but it's just multiple choice. So I think you will be able to do this really quickly. And again, if you have any questions later on, or you want to know more, or see if it could help you in your company, then feel free to reach out to us. I added our email addresses again, and we will also keep to have a look at the Slack channel as well.